Wow, it is really important that I have my notes. Give me 1 second. I'm really honored to be here, guys. Like, really excited. Getting to take a second and just share what God's put on my heart. Share what he has for you guys. And what he's been teaching me through the book of Ruth. Yes, the whole book of Ruth. But don't worry. I'm not going to try to read all 4 chapters for you. We would be here much longer than 9, okay? But I am going to encourage you, invite you, and urge you, read it. Don't miss the personal invitation from Jesus in that book to you. Before we even get into the book of Ruth, I need to know, I need I need you to know that we're going to walk through it together, each step. And I also need you guys to know 3 really important things about me, okay? So that's kind of like the one thing. If I say okay, say okay. There you go. All right. So the first thing is we have our first slide. It's a very important person to me. He is really cute, and he's my best friend. And I'm dressed up as Bob Ross. Thank you. I was proud of that outfit. I was also extremely surprised that I looked that good in a wig. But David's costume, my husband, definitely had a much comfier outfit, like much comfier. And this was taken at a middle school gym night, and at this particular gym night, it was costume themed. I cannot express the joy it is getting to play dodgeball when you have a ton of middle schoolers in costumes, and you're dodging and you're throwing. So much fun. The second thing is a little bit different, but it's more of a confession, is my strong suit has never been fill in the blanks. I'm so sorry. I've always been so distracted when trying to make them and so distracted in trying to follow them. But we have a fill in the blank for everybody today. I've stepped out of my comfort zone, and we're going to do it. It's going to be the 6. If everybody wants to write it down, if you write it down now, this would also have been probably the first time I would be writing it down correctly in the year. So it's okay. It's okay. No shame. No shame. And the last thing you need to know about me is I want to be the kind of person that likes to do puzzles. Like you sit down and you have all the pieces laid out. Like, I admire puzzle people, or what I would like to coin, the puzzlers in the room. If you're a puzzler, you just raise your hand. Let me see some puzzle people. Oh, yeah, there you go, all over the room. We love it, right? But I have limits, with my patience particularly, but I also have very distinct conditions in which I will do a puzzle, okay? The first one is I need to see the box, okay? Right? That makes sense across the room? Beautiful. I need to know what it's supposed to look like, right? And I need, like, distinct confirmation that all the pieces are actually there, okay? Preferably, I would want a brand new box that is still, like, sealed, okay? I don't trust easily. And the last thing is I don't want to do a puzzle alone. I actually hate doing puzzles alone. I could have all the other things, but if I'm trying to do a puzzle alone, nothing else really adds up. So, you have all these things. These are my conditions. That's the dream. Well, at least. Because the next few puzzles I'm about to show you on the screen are probably like the farthest thing from an approachable puzzle. Sorry. So our first one, let's just get right into it, because I'm excited. This one Yeah, I know. So you look at it and you're like, okay. It's kind of inviting, right? Like it kind of looks friendly, but like that's a stretch. There's repeating colors, there's tiny details. It's not going to be easy. I mean, I think, honestly, once you start, you quickly realize that it's probably demanding way more patience than you were willing to bring. So then you move to the next puzzle, right? And now, this just feels mean because I think the rules have just changed entirely. The pieces stop helping you. You flip them over constantly, feeling like you're working harder, but you're feeling more and more unsure of the puzzle. But, then you get to the next puzzle, which gets a little bit more complicated. And this is where it stops being fun, okay? I think it stopped being fun at puzzle 1, but we won't go into that. Everything looks the same. The edges don't line up. Nothing actually connects anymore. You're flipping them over constantly, and each piece feels like, more different than the next. This puzzle will humble you. This puzzle humbles me. But then our last puzzle, you see, at a glance, it actually looks kind of friendly, almost inviting. There's hope for me in puzzles. There's a picture, at least. There's a sense of direction, a sense of maybe progress is possible. But then you turn the puzzle box over on its side, to the back. And if you can read this, it's okay. It's painful. I will explain it a little bit. So the puzzle is double-sided. I know. It gets worse. See, you have, it's so sad. I'm like, the puzzle. You have it double-sided, but one side is printed on a 90-degree angle. And then, when you think maybe there's hope, because when you make a puzzle, fun fact, now you guys will know how to make a puzzle, it's pressed and then cut. So you could see potentially like an edge, right? Like there's maybe a lip. No, not with this puzzle. They cut it and pressed it twice. That means just sadness in a puzzle. And so I hate this puzzle. And the really frustrating part about this is when you don't know what side is what, it's not even a challenge anymore. It's really disorienting. Nothing fits well. But the funniest and the most devastating part of this puzzle is that it says on the box, if the pieces don't fit perfectly, you've got it wrong. Do you know how many times I probably have tried to put puzzle pieces together and they weren't even this hard and I've already given up? Like I have forced pieces into places that clearly, color-wise, did not match. But they look like they should on the outside. And this puzzle, like in particular though, you could actually be holding the right piece and not know it. You could actually be giving it your best attention, your most effort, and still feel more discouraged as time goes on. So the sense of progress becomes less and less clear. Just piece after piece requires more and more attention and effort. And honestly, this usually isn't the moment I want to remember, but it is the moment I realize I don't like puzzles. Because when you get to a point where nothing makes sense, when every piece looks important, but none of them make sense, you begin to wonder, am I doing it wrong? Are you doing it wrong? Is it the puzzle's fault? Did I miss something? Or am I holding the right piece all along? Or is it under the couch? And that's why you get a sealed box. Don't lose any pieces. And eventually, okay, these moments of just frustration, you might ask yourself a question I've asked myself many times, is if these pieces don't belong, what am I supposed to do? Or worse, what if the picture isn't even good anymore? And there's been moments in my life where I've asked that question about my story. I've asked that question about me. It kind of felt like I was holding different pieces of my story that I didn't understand. Pieces I kept turning over and over again, hoping that the longer I stare at it, the longer I can figure it out and had more time, I might be able to make sense of it. I might be able to understand it. But along the way, I picked up this quiet belief that this was my responsibility to know what to do with the pieces, what to do with exactly what I'm holding, because if it didn't fit together with what I wanted, it must be my fault. Now, I didn't say this out loud, of course not. What? But I did live it out. Instead of trusting God, I got really good at managing my pieces. I tried harder. I held things tighter. I overthought every single conversation, every single situation. And I would stay so busy so I wouldn't even have to worry about the uneasiness I felt, or really be confronted with the lack of control I had. I told myself that I could be enough, that I could keep things from just falling apart. No matter what piece I was holding, I thought it was my piece, though. It's part of my dream, though. And deep down, I really do think, you guys, that I started to believe something. That I couldn't trust God if I didn't understand his why. I couldn't understand what he was actually asking me to do because it felt like it didn't fit my puzzle. I think there's something where we need to be able to sit in that tension, but I don't think that's a unique thing like just for me. I think a lot of us actually are sitting in the tension of, do you trust God when you don't even understand what's happening or what did happen? You might be sitting in different seasons of life. But I can tell you right now that every woman in this room is holding pieces of a story. Pieces that you didn't choose, pieces and moments that you wouldn't have picked up. You wouldn't relive. Edges that don't actually line up with what you have or what you want. Pieces of maybe pain that don't seem like they're fading the way you want them to, or you thought they would. Pieces of unfinished dreams or questions with no answers, decisions you don't even know how to make out yet. Maybe you're like me, where you're turning over those questions so many times that you forgot what the question was. All you know is how hard it is to not drop the piece. So, that's pretty frustrating, but it's also pretty exhausting. And I think a lot of us are there too. Tired of holding all the pieces. Tired of worrying that something has already fallen, that you're responsible for that alone. So, I want us to be able to acknowledge that question, that tension that you feel deep down, that is God ready for the pieces no one knows about. That's okay. We can talk about that here. Because do you know where we're going in the book of Ruth? The beginning. And Scripture actually invites us into a story that starts it starts nothing but good. Sorry, nothing but not good. There you go. It starts super, super hard. You have famine and loss and displacement. You have grief and heavy pain. The book of Ruth invites us to sit with that moment, but it does not leave us there. Naomi is holding those pieces, the grief, the loss, the questions. Her picture doesn't look unfinished. It looks ruined. Naomi couldn't see yet, though, what God was really doing. So I'm going to invite us to sit and what if God is asking us a different question? Asking us, do you trust me even if you don't know? I'm going to pray. If you could bow your heads. God, thank you so much that no question, no pain or frustration is too much for you. That you don't mind sitting with us at the table. God, help us to lean in to the invitation that you have been extending out to us from day one with no strings attached. God, you are so good. And all God's sisters and daughters said, amen. Wow. Okay, so we're in the book of Ruth, and I'm going to give you a little bit of context, and we're going to actually discover things together. Does that sound good? Let's try that again. We're going to discover things together. Does that sound good? Yes. Thank you. Okay. Very beginning, we have Bethlehem, okay? We have Moab, okay? Bethlehem means house of bread. Say, house of bread. House of bread. Moab, no bread. Right? In context of names, okay? But what happens is Bethlehem has no bread. They have no food. They're in a famine. So then in our very first verse, what happens? Naomi's husband makes a decision that was pretty survival. Like he had to. No food. Potentially food. But the name of the city means like food. Like, doesn't really make sense. Let's read. Yeah? In the days when the judges ruled, there was a famine in the land. So a man from Bethlehem in Judea, together with his wife and 2 sons, went to live for a while in the country of Moab. The man's name was Elimelech, and his wife's name was Naomi, and the names of his 2 sons were Mahlon and Chilion. They were Ephrathites from Bethlehem, Judea, and they went to Moab and lived there. Now, Elimelech, Naomi's wife, Naomi's husband, died, and she was left with her 2 sons. They married Moabite women, one named Orpah and the other named Ruth. After they had lived there about 10 years, both Mahlon and Chilion also died, and Naomi was left without her 2 sons and her husband. Just 5 verses in, and everything is gone. Her husband, and then 10 years of grieving later, her 2 sons. no grandchildren, no future family line. That's heavy, which means Naomi is widowed, childless, landless, and for us, that is devastating. For Naomi, it was way more than grief. You see, this was economic devastation. This was social vulnerability at the max. This was survival level grief and pain. In a culture where women were not valued, in a culture where they couldn't easily acquire income, this was devastating. There was no protection. There was no preservation. There was a lot of emptiness on the other side. So when we read those first 5 verses, we're not just reading about her grief. We're reading about women, all 3, that have just lost the one thing that they need for life to be stable. But there's hope. The famine is now left. It's not in Bethlehem anymore, so she could go back. This was during the time of the harvest, and so there was even more good odds that she could find food. So, these 2 women head back home. Orpah doesn't last very long on that trip. The bulk of it is Ruth and Naomi. You see, their journey back definitely was not simple. It actually would have been a lot because it was 50 miles on foot. Can't do that. Treacherous terrain, dry, mountainous, rugged, not fun. If you're a cross-country runner, this is your bread and butter. I am not. This is not my bread and butter. But I also don't think it was very fun for Naomi and Ruth. I think each step, Naomi probably had to go through a little bit of an emotional roller coaster. Do I trust that there's actually something better at the end? That it's worth the journey? This was costly. And this is where it gets really interesting. Naomi almost doesn't have anyone. Naomi has been going through this tension in her head of, do I still want the what if? Do I still want to lean into the hope of maybe there's better in Bethlehem? She realizes she doesn't probably want to actually bring these 2 daughter-in-laws through the journey that she's about to continue. Maybe she was actually really worried that they would experience the same level of disappointment, hurt, and pain that she just went through. So I don't think it was this anger or frustration from Naomi pushing these 2 daughter-in-laws away. I think it was an act of, I'm going to try to protect them for what I've experienced. And so she decides, hey, I think you guys need to go back. I have nothing to offer you. I have nothing to give you, so please leave. Go home. Let me be alone. This journey wasn't easy, but I also want to know what that conversation was like. All 3 of them have already left Moab at this point. How far along on the trip are they? And then Naomi's like, go back home. That's a bummer. What if they're almost there? I doubt it, but it's that moment of whoa. Orpah leaves. She goes, okay. Naomi sits with Ruth for a second more because of what Ruth says. But I need you to catch, Naomi has been going through this tension with God this whole time leading up to this moment. A wrestle with hope. You don't push the people away that you need unless you don't have to be needed. Like, you don't want them to need you because you have nothing to offer now. So, Naomi is at this moment with Ruth. And we're going to read Ruth 1:16 through 17. Naomi has just said, go home. Orpah said, okay. Ruth, this is her response. But Ruth replied, don't urge me to leave you or to turn back from you. Where you go, I will go. And where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, if even death separates you and me. I don't think that those weighty words were said lightly. And I've read this passage over and over again, and I am not just struck by what Ruth said, but I'm actually really struck with what she didn't say. I would have said, I'll fix it. I'll find a way. You don't have to go alone without a solution, without your problems fixed. Ruth doesn't say any of that, though. Instead, she chooses a path that by every other person's standard and every reasonable standard was a mistake. Ruth still had options. And staying with Naomi was not a logical one. It wasn't smart. She could have went back home, rebuilt, got married. Her options were pretty wide. But she shuts it. She shuts the door of those options. And what's so beautiful, but also striking in this context, is that when we go back to the very first five, 6 words in the book of Ruth, there's a little bit of a play on the book that we just finished. So it goes Judges and then Ruth. We have the last verse in the book of Judges as a slide. Let's read it together. In those days, Israel had no king. Everyone did as they saw fit. Do you think that was the right decision for Ruth? Do you think that was culturally the norm, to be selfless? No. It's a no. We can say no. Mm-hmm. In those days, there was this common theme of, I'm going to trust myself before I trust God. Naomi's husband made a decision that he felt like he didn't have a choice to make. The culture around them was very content with being self-reliant. Security came as the strategy. Safety, that came as the control. If I can control it, I can have it. I think that's a lot like our culture now. But Jesus has more for you. Don't settle. This is where the story takes a very different turn. You see, when we enter into chapter 2, everybody say 2? This is where you start seeing some pretty incredible things. As we read just the first 4 verses of chapter Nice, good job. Um, you're going to see something really cool. I want to see if you guys catch it. Okay, you guys ready? Now, Naomi had a relative on her husband's side, a man of standing from the clan of Elimelech, whose name was Boaz. Who remembers Elimelech? Husband? Yeah. That opening sentence sets a very distinct tone. Before Ruth has ever even thought about stepping into a field, God's already introduced a new character. God's already created an opportunity Ruth and Naomi know nothing about. He's already preparing. So when there's something that God is asking you to do, or maybe it is the obedience, that God, I'm going to trust you in this moment. I don't know what's on the other side. But can I tell you what is on the other side? Jesus. He's on the other side. He will always be there and here. Because he is going to walk with you from point A to point B because of what he's done for you. Verse 2 in chapter 2. And Ruth the Moabite said to Naomi, let me go to the fields and pick up the leftover grain behind anyone in whose eyes I find favor. Naomi said to her, go ahead, my daughter. So she went out, entered a field, and began to glean behind the harvesters. As it turned out, she was working in the field belonging to Boaz, who was from the clan of Elimelech. You guys, just as it so happens, just all of a sudden, God is in every moment, even when you don't know, but he's inviting you to be a part of it. You don't have to know what he's doing to be invited into it. Ruth had no theological groundwork before she said yes to God. And she was invited into so much more, which we will see very soon. I'm so bad at keeping secrets. I get so excited. Just then, Boaz arrived from Bethlehem. Just then. There it is again. I just rhymed. That was great. You guys, this is so beautiful. Ruth's perspective was just survival going into this field. I need to collect some food so I don't die, but also so Naomi doesn't die, so I have to get a lot of food, so I might be here all day. And she is. But it's a very different day than what she expected. The timing of this is even incredible because Naomi is at home, or wherever they are at the time, a place in Bethlehem, we'll say that. Ruth is in this field. She's gleaning. Just out of the blue, Boaz comes in, and he asks about her. Like when you have a friend over and you have a group party and someone cute walks in, you lean over to your friend and you go, who dat? Who is it? What do they like? Are they fun? How long have they been here? Cool. Do they have any allergies? Yeah, those are my questions. I always ask everybody, do you have any allergies? But okay. He inquires about her. He wants to know who she is. And this day is beautiful. And it's also, there's a little flirting. It's kind of cute. But what Boaz does is he doesn't just look at who she is, but he looks at her character. Even the guy that he asks, which he asks one of his managers for harvesting his field, right, all his grain. Even the manager, in responding to Boaz, he says, she's a Moabite, but she's also been here all day. She's been humble. She's been kind. He speaks into her character, and Boaz leans into that. So you have this beautiful encounter that only could have been timed and orchestrated by God. I know we have people in this room who love a good spreadsheet. I am the same way. I love a good planned, scheduled event, but I could not plan that good. Only God. And I think we cancel God out first in our plans. Not one encounter, one moment of just chapter 1 or 2 have been accidental or random. God's providence is unfolding as we speak. So when Boaz has a meal with Ruth, and it's a beautiful, flirty time, it's fine, it's great. Ruth returns home. Okay, she returns back to Naomi, and she has a lot of food. Boaz, again, did not let her leave without being blessed. That's important. So as Ruth gets home, she has all this food, and Naomi starts to notice something. She starts to sit in the realization of this can't be real. This is a lot of grain. This can't be luck. This can't be a coincidence. There has to be more. And so, what starts to happen is Naomi's emptiness, Naomi's hopelessness is being interrupted by God's providence. But Naomi didn't have to choose to see it. I think a lot of us actually get really good at blocking it out or just counting it as like coincidence. God sees you. He hasn't not seen you, even in the frustrating moments. She doesn't have the whole story yet, Naomi. She doesn't know where God is actually taking the providence, but she notices that something is happening. So when we move into chapter 3, everybody say 3. Something shifts. Because this is the fun part. You see, in this chapter, Naomi essentially is like, hey, daughter, hey, Ruth, enough gleaning. Enough gathering grain. Let's talk about the future. This is like the carefully cut out and culturally appropriate, Bible-approved version of Ruth shooting her shot with Boaz. Okay? I know that was a long one. But this is the moment. And what's really interesting is, this is like, it's so cool because Naomi has felt like she has nothing to give. Naomi knows the culture. Naomi has grown up in Bethlehem. Ruth has not. What Naomi helps Ruth understand is how to go about this, how to propose something very important. A proposal. Ah. Okay? Thank you. I write my own jokes. Okay. But what's really beautiful is this is an opportunity for Naomi to give, to be a part of something. Ruth is receiving this information, but also she is being invited to so much more. So culturally, what they needed in this scenario and why Boaz is so important is because he is one of very few people who could be their kinsman redeemer. Redeeming or redemption is another way of saying someone's being bought back to the original placement, that they are being saved from, that someone is paying a cost to bring them out to where they should be. Doesn't that paint a beautiful picture? But what if Naomi and Ruth didn't want to be saved? We won't get into that yet. Not yet, not yet. You see, it's important for us to understand the significance of Boaz. But what's really interesting is what Boaz says to Ruth. Because in this encounter, Ruth has to go to Boaz and propose this redeeming plan. Nothing's been finalized yet. Nothing has this stamp of approval, but she goes with a lot of faith, a lot of guts, and hope. She puts it all out there, says, this is what I need. This is what needs to be done. I want more, and I'm willing to be honest about it. So, Boaz says, hey, thanks. Like, it's actually really funny. You need to read it. I try not to paraphrase everything. But there's something super beautiful about his honest reaction. He's startled because she comes to him at night. And he responds with the very first thing he really says to her is he blesses her. He does not talk about the law and the logistics first. He addresses her with dignity first. I think that shows us something pretty beautiful. So he tells her the truth. Hey, there's someone closer in the family line who is first to be called upon to be the redeeming factor in your life. There's someone else. But he says, if they won't, I will. If they won't, I will. You won't be left with nothing. You won't be left alone. This is another level of uncertainty, though. It creates another hurdle or another season of, what if? But even if, there's God. You can have your what if. But I'm going to choose the even if. Even if God is still good. Even if that doesn't change him. So when we get to the very end of chapter 3, when Ruth gets back home, Ruth goes straight to Naomi, and Naomi says what we all say when a friend gets home from a date. How'd it go? And Ruth goes on and on about the details, kind of. But what's so important is in verse 17, it says, and added, he gave me these 6 measures of barley, saying, don't go to your mother-in-law empty-handed. Don't go empty-handed. Let me meet you with the physical, tangible need. For Naomi, that was big. That word, empty, is coming back. See, that same word carries a lot of weight. It was the words that she was saying as she was leaving Moab. Said, God has left me empty. I went there full, but now I come back empty. Boaz says, I can't let you go back empty-handed. Let me give you something. That was a conversation between Naomi and God. God saying, I see it. I heard it. I'm not done yet. When we get to the last chapter, we're almost there. Chapter 4. Everybody say 4? Nice. Boaz It's a man of upright character, right? Good standing. He does the good, upright thing. He has to go find this other relative that's closer in the line to be the redeemer. So I need you to lock in for this. This is really fun. So he goes to the city central area, okay? He gets there, and it's just all of the sudden, the other guardian redeemer shows up. Coincidence? I think. Let's try it one more time. Coincidence? I think. Yes, great job. This is important. God is setting up everything. He's the main character in it. Not Ruth, not Naomi, not Boaz. He's moving in these moments. And then let me tell you about the conversation with Boaz and this other guardian redeemer who doesn't even have a name, which is super significant, but we don't have time to get to it. But it's something kind of beautiful. So read the book. Seriously, read the book of Ruth. Don't just take what I'm saying now as enough. Go read it. So Boaz is having this conversation, right? He meets this guy and he goes, hey, I've gathered all the elders. It's already done, already taken care of. Let's talk shop, okay? Here's the deal. You're the closer relative, so that means you have first dibs. Because there's something significant about he's now given the opportunity to buy back Naomi's family's land. But he's buying it, so he's also getting land. So there's some significance to that. And then the other thing he would then take and marry Ruth, the widow, to continue the family line. So the family now has a future. Naomi now has hope. But Boaz is kind of in love with Ruth. Okay, let's be real about that. So he kind of plays the oldest trick in the book, okay? If I'm looking at you, which I am right now, and I want you to pick option A, right? And I have option B, or it'll make sense. Give me a second. I'm going to give you the best news first. So then when I say the bad news, the good doesn't hold the same weight. But if I wanted you to be okay with what's happening, I'd probably tell you bad news and say, but there's good news. Because when there's good news later, you can kind of handle what's going on. How much, though, how many times do we live our life and we don't actually think about the good news? The good news. You guys. So Boaz is in this conversation, okay? And he gives him, hey, there's land, legacy, value, property, the works. And then the other redeemer's like, sweet, love it, I'm in. And then Boaz is over here okay, sweet. And Ruth, Moabite. And her children, her kids, will actually inherit the land. That means the land doesn't even count anymore. That's significant. So you get to this point, and then the other redeemer's like, I'm good. Boaz loved Ruth, so that wasn't an L. That wasn't a loss. They were both really good news. I think we miss that a lot. I think we live in the bad news because it's familiar. And I also think a lot of people do what the other redeemer did. When things get really hard, it's our knee-jerk reaction sometimes is to step back. Boaz, what did he do? Stepped forward. But he didn't do it out of obligation. He didn't do it because he was the only other option. He was hoping for this all along. He was hoping that he could be the one to love her well. So Boaz's story, his family story. Do you know who his mom is? I'm going to wait. Who wants to say it? Yeah? Rahab? Yeah. Who was her? Wait, who is she? That's better. A Canaanite? A foreigner? Prostitute? Yeah. Socially devalued. A foreigner. Ruth? Socially insignificant. A foreigner. Boaz saw value where no one else did. And another thing, this is just a little snippet. Not once do you hear about what Ruth looked like. You hear about her character, her choices. You do not hear about what she looks like. The very last few verses in Ruth. So Boaz took Ruth and she became his wife. They had a son. And that son is significant. But I don't want you guys to miss that what started with famine, loss, grief, hopelessness, ends in a marriage, ends in a family being established. It ends completely contradicting to the beginning. God is not scared of scary beginnings. He's not waiting for perfect beginnings. He's waiting for you to say yes to him. Willingness. God has been redeeming broken families and broken stories far before I was born or you were born. He's good at this. Trust him. This is not new to him. He's an expert. He's also not finished with your story. You see, Naomi and Ruth, they couldn't see what was happening. They didn't know the end. They didn't even see God working throughout the fields and then to the city area where even the conversation about redemption was being made. They had no idea how God was orchestrating every single piece. But Naomi and Ruth were willing to walk it with open hands. They didn't know what God was doing or building. And that's often how faith can feel. We can't see the whole picture, but looking back, wow, look what God's done. And he's not done yet. I can't wait. But that's hard, because the really hard part is in the middle. When you're doing a puzzle, the beginning's not difficult. You can pick any of them. The ending's actually the best part, just want to be honest. When you have that last piece, that's great. The middle is when nothing makes sense. When the question deep down really forces you to ask, do I trust the one who actually designed the puzzle? The pieces are in his hands. The painful ones, the confusing ones, the ones you wish weren't there entirely. So maybe tonight, maybe trust for you actually looks a lot more like just release. Like you have the puzzle pieces. And some of them you actually see, like, they are pretty valuable. Like, God's going to use this pain. I believe he will. But then you don't actually tell anyone about it. God can't use that you don't give. You can have the pieces, but are you still hanging on to them? You can feel okay about them or good about them. But what would it look like if you started to open up your hands? Said, God, I don't always understand why they're here, what they mean, or even if they're worth considering. But I trust you and what you can do with puzzle pieces, because nothing is wasted in his hands. Not the mistakes of others, not the mistakes of yourself, not the questions that you have. God's so good. Don't miss out on actually experiencing that walk with him. I'm going to pray. You can bow your heads. God, thank you that the story of redemption has never been about perfect beginnings, but just surrendered stories. God, I ask that as we sit in some of just like the painful moments of life, that we don't forget that we can sit with you, that we don't have to walk this alone, that you're not done even when it feels like it. God, help us to live like we actually believe it's true. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Rose. Let's give her a round of applause.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Well, that was wonderful, wasn't it?